Confucius said if a craftsman wants to do good work, he must first sharpen his tools. In today's episode, we'll talk about the top 5 software tools used by developers in game development studios. Welcome to the Crunch Button. Yeah, that's right. Welcome back to the Crunch Button, where we pull back the digital curtain and talk about how games are made in professional development studios. My name is Nathan Baseley. I've been a producer and a game director for over 17 years. Now, if you're enjoying this content, please like and subscribe. And more importantly than that, please comment and let me know what you're enjoying and what you'd like me to cover more of in the future. So today we're going to be talking about the top 5 software development tools that are used by developers to make games. Before we get into that, I need to talk about the criteria that I've used to select them. I wanted to pick software that's used by most of the developers most of the time. By definition, that excludes some of the specialist tools that are used by the different disciplines. So for example, if you're an artist, you'll be using modeling tools such as Maya or 3D Studio Max, Blender, ZBrush. If you're a VFX artist, maybe something like Houdini. And if you're a musician, you'll be using a DAW like Ableton or Logic Pro, and some specialist software audio interface tools like WWise or Fmod, which connects your music into the game in an interactive way. Producers will be using a lot of Office or Office equivalent tools, especially Excel and productivity tools. There's also specialist tools for people doing UI to test UI flow and flow through the game. And some will be using video editing software like DaVinci or Premiere or Final Cut to make trailers or for internal use in the team. So leaving those discipline-specific tools to one side, let's get started with our top 5. At number 5, we have source control. So what is source control? You have to imagine lots of developers all making changes to the same game, and that those changes affect everybody else's work. There are many things that can go wrong, and there are many headaches that need to be avoided, and that's where source control comes in. Source control records every change that's made to the game, and every individual making a change writes in text what it is that they've altered. That gives us a change list. A list of things that have altered. So for example, if we play the game 1 week and then a week later, we can look at the list of things that have changed between those 2 review sessions and focus on them for review. Or if the build we had 2 days ago was better than the one that we've got now, or if we're coming up to a milestone and we have a good build on the Tuesday and we say, let's make a few more changes before we lock it, and we make those changes and it's worse, we can revert to the point that we last thought it was good. Source control can also lock parts of the game. So no 2 people are making changes to exactly the same thing at once. Or you might be at a stage in the project where you need to lock parts of the game because making any changes is too risky. So for source control, you might be using something like Perforce or GitHub. There's also something psychologically important about source control. It's like when people make a change to the game, they understand the significance and the risks. We sometimes compound that feeling of responsibility with something called buddy checking, where somebody else on the team checks the thing that's being changed before it goes in. The change is recorded as being made by person 1 and checked by person 2. At number 4 on our list are communication tools. Communication is everything about what we do as a team. Nobody works in a silo. Every day begins with a stand-up where people get together and they talk about what they did yesterday, what they're doing today, and if they are blocked by anybody. And so the day continues with people getting together in groups to talk about new designs, progress, fix problems, to have a chat, to review user testing feedback, client feedback. Today, many people work remotely, and that's put more emphasis on software to solve problems that used to happen in the room. My pick for number 4 is Microsoft Teams, a piece of software that really came into its own during the COVID lockdowns of 2020-2021. Not only does it provide video chat for very large groups of people, but it has an increasing set of features that enables text chat, document sharing, minuting, recording of decision making, and so on. Alternatives to Microsoft Teams would include things like Zoom or Slack, which started as a group instant messaging platform and has added video functionality more recently. Number 3 on my list is another communication tool, but specifically one for collaboration. And it's definitely a new entry. It's called Miro. Miro is like a gigantic, near infinite whiteboard where everybody can record their ideas, and it can be used for numerous purposes. For example, for brainstorming, for reviewing work, or for short-term planning, or to do retrospective reviews at the end of a body of work. And in this age of people working some from home and some from the office, everyone has an equal voice. It's very democratic. Very often when you are running teams, one of the hardest things to do is to get people to use the tools and the processes that have been put in place. But with Miro, it seems extremely popular. And so that barrier just disappears. There are downsides to this type of approach. On the flip side of the highly collaborative benefit is the downside that it can feel chaotic and disorganized and can lack an authoritative voice, especially when it comes to sign-off. There are alternative softwares to collaboration, such as Confluence, which is the opposite. It has the built-in structure and the processes so that people can understand what's been signed off and what's explorative. At number 2, we have task management. Task management is what makes game development feel like work. Whoever you are on the team, you're going to be starting your day by looking at what tasks you have to do. One of the most common pieces of software for task management in video game development is Jira. It enables producers and leads to manage the work of the entire team, to track progress, to identify problems. Tasks take the form of tickets in the software. Those tickets contain the information that the team member needs to do the task. For example, it contains links to the design document, success criteria, the name of the person who created the ticket if they have questions, conversation between people about what the task is, subtasks. The team member will use the tickets to estimate the work and to report back on their progress. The software contains the formal process so that when the task is marked complete by the task owner, it goes automatically to a particular person to review and approve. All of this progress added up together and monitored by the producer can give us something called velocity. That means how quickly the team is progressing through tasks. That helps us to estimate where we are in terms of our deadlines and whether we're on track. There are alternatives to Jira, such as Microsoft Project, Trello, Monday.com, Shotgun, Handsoft. Each of these has its own pros and cons and depends on the particular need of the team. Whichever one you pick, if you're working in game development, there is going to be a task list. Some teams even do this physically with boards in the office and post-it notes. But however this problem is solved, task management is central to every developer's day-to-day work. At number 1, and of no surprise if you've been playing along, is the game engine. Now, I was tempted to put something else at number 1 because this was just too predictable, but ultimately there is nothing more important than the game. I think about the game engine as the interface between the game that the team is making and the platform that the game is being played on. Unreal is my pick for this category, and when it comes to third-party engines, in medium to large-size professional studios, it is the most popular. Alternatives to Unreal include Unity, which is more popular for smaller games and smaller developers, or bespoke engines made by the developers themselves. So years ago, when I first started in game development, pretty much everybody had their own game engine. In fact, I was working at one developer where on the same floor, there were 2 teams, both making third-person action games, both making their own separate game engines. It was just the way that it happened. And over the years, Unreal has added more and more features and made itself more and more valuable to game developers, to the point where it is the platform of choice. For the biggest games that you can think of, those developers still tend to make their own game engines. They have the resources to be able to do it. And the advantage of making your own game engine is that everything in it serves your game. There's no fat, there's no features that are made for somebody else. Everything in it is for you. So that can lead to better performance, better visuals, and often a more distinctive look. For most other developers, the time saved by not having to make your own game engine goes directly into the game and makes the game better. And so whether you're using a third-party engine like Unreal or Unity, or a bespoke one, and almost regardless of your discipline, your work goes here. By the way, Unreal is free to download and to use. You only pay for it if you release a title commercially. And there are a ton of tutorials on YouTube. So if you're interested in joining the industry, I highly recommend that you download it and start to become familiar with it. So those were our top 5 software development tools used by game developers in professional studios. Let me know if you think that I've forgotten anything or you disagree about the order. And please comment if there's anything else you'd like me to cover more in the future. Thanks as always for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.